Hi, Stephen from OWNorDisown. Newegg kindly sent me the Acer Predator Triton 300. It's a part of my Newegg Now series, which of course is sponsored by Newegg. So thank you very much for them. Now this is a laptop I've always wanted to try myself, and now I've always had to buy it in the past. So it's I've had to buy the Helios 300, had to buy the Triton 500. So thankfully now I can get my hands on some Acer laptops without having to actually pay for them. So this is a first look unboxing. I'll show you some like performance metrics, see what you think there, some thermals, show you inside, and then it'll follow by a full review, of course. So if there's anything in particular you want me to test, make sure to put that in the comments. So as usual, the packaging is nice. Of course, you've got the Predator logo there nicely on there. Now it's a premium model compared to the Helios 300. It's a little bit thinner and a little bit lighter, and of course it's an all aluminium build. And the beauty about this, it's actually only $1,450 on Newegg. It's reduced from $1,600. I think that's quite a good bargain, because what we have in here, we have a RTX 2070 Max Q. It's not the Super Max Q or anything like that. It's just a regular 2070 Max Q. It's an 80-watt part, but with the turbo mode, it does go up to 90 watts. So that is pretty good. And of course, you've got the i7-10758 CPU, a 6-core, 12-thread CPU. And of course, with the turbo mode, you've got max fan with turbo mode, but also you've got options to do the various fan controls as well. Whether do a max fan or play with the fans on the CPU and the GPU independently, and that's very nice. Like I said before, it is an all aluminium build, and even the underside is all aluminium. Now in the Helios 300, of course, it's underneath it's plastic, so you do have a bit more premium feel to it, and you do have some big feet here at the back. You do have some fairly decent air intakes as well, which I do like. And of course on the lid, it is a fairly clean, it's clean looking. Of course, you do have the blue emblem here, the Predator logo, which does light up blue in the dark there. So personally, I would like a more cleaner look, but if you can get a skin, you can always put that on as well. Now just like the Triton 500 and even the Helios, really, the keyboard is pretty decent. There's not that much flex to the deck, which is quite nice, and the keys are painted white around the edges there to make it a little bit easier to see, and in semi-light, I say. You do have a separate number pad, and you do have the power button here is on the far side. You do have a Predator Sense button here, which of course opens up their software, and at the top here you do have some air intakes, which does help bring some cool air in through for the fans. And you do have the turbo button here now. Now it's fairly flush. I do wish it was raised more to make it stand out, and I also wish that this turbo would light up the words so you can actually see it a bit easier in the dark. But that's not too bad. But the trackpad, it's actually an Elan trackpad, and I think it's made out of plastic. Sometimes it's hard to tell, but it's nice and big. It's fairly deep here, so it's certainly very good. All in all, it's quite a good quality build. Now the panel, there's a little bit of flex to it. Now it's a 240 hertz panel, which is gets a good thumbs up from me, and it's got a 3 millisecond response time with overdrive, and ghosting performance is fantastic. And even the backlight bleed is a sharp panel, and the backlight bleed was non-existent. Now you may recall the Helios 300 using the AUO panel, and also the Triton 500 I had with that same panel had quite awful backlight bleed. This one, very, very good indeed. Now the weight is only like £4 13 ounces, and the weight with the 230-watt power brick is £6 12 ounces. Now its thickness, is 0.78 inches thick compared to the Helios 300's 0.97 inches thick. So it's certainly more slender. Now looking at the ports, on the left-hand side, we have the air vent, we have the Ethernet jack, we have two USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A ports, and a combo headphone mic jack. On the right hand side, we do have a USB Type C port, and we also have another USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A port, which actually you can use to power devices when the laptop's powered off. So that's nice to have. You've got an HDMI 2.0 and a mini DisplayPort 1.4. So it doesn't have a Thunderbolt 3 port, but to be honest, I think you don't really need those. I think the DisplayPort is very nice to have, and the power port is around here at the back, which is great. Keeps it away from your mouse hand. I do like that. Now, the cooling wise, it does have the 4th gen aero blade design, which means that the GPU fan actually is made out of metal. It has 59 blades, which are about 0.1 millimeters thick, and it has little winglets on it to help reduce the fan noise. And I did find in my quick testing here that the fan noise was okay. Now the Helios 300, if you may remember, would pulse up and down. This, I didn't experience anything like that. And granted, a max fan, is fairly loud, but at idle, it's like 34 decibels or so, so it's certainly not too bad. And the second fan blade is actually just made out of plastic. The battery is a 59 watt hour battery, and that's probably its Achilles heel, because you get about 3 hours 20 minutes of runtime, which is a little bit pokey really. There's a bit of space to the left of the battery, which I think is a bit strange, because you think you could perhaps put an extra larger battery in there, but I don't think that's available. Now, of course, the Helios 300 had the same 59 watt hour battery, and in that space to the left it did have a 2.5-inch bay, which this doesn't, but it does have 2 M.2 slots inside, which is nice to have. And you can have a max of 32 gigabytes of RAM seemingly, so it does have 2 slots, which you can of course replace easily. And the Wi-Fi is the Intel AX201 Wi-Fi 6 card, and I had no problems at all with my internet at all. And the cooling wise, it's got one shared heat pipe, and it's got a separate heat pipe for both the GPU and the CPU. And you do have 4 heat sinks around, of course, the sides and the back, and they are anodized blue, which adds a nice little touch to it. I do like that. So the first BIOS I had was 1.01, and I purposely didn't update it. I wanted to do some testing first. And with a BIOS, you can actually undervolt. I got it down to minus 100 millivolts. That didn't really make that much difference compared to, say, like minus 70 millivolts. But you can also, using throttle stop or XTU, change the PL1 value. And the PL1 is 65 watts. The PL2 is 107 watts. So you can reduce that if you want. And also using throttle stop, you can reduce the clock speed of the CPU. That's only on the BIOS 1.01. In my testing, it's still got pretty hot. I had to reduce the clock speed down, perhaps I think it was like 3,500 megahertz or so, just to bring that temperature down a bit. But I upgraded to BIOS 1.07, and that gave an undervolt of minus 50 millivolts. Now you couldn't change that at all. You could still change the PL1 value. We couldn't change the multipliers and the throttle stop, but so that was good to have that out of the box. So actually the power modes on the GPU, you've got the normal mode and the fast mode. They're both 80 watts, and turbo mode boosts up the GPU to 90 watts. So what this means in practice is the fast mode increases the clock speed of the GPU by 50 megahertz and the memory by 30 megahertz, and the turbo mode actually for the 90 watts boosts that up to 100 megahertz on the core and 60 megahertz on the memory. The frame rate actually in Far Cry New Dawn wasn't really affected too much by the different power modes, but there certainly was a difference between the different BIOSes. The new BIOS, the BIOS 1.07, definitely saw an increase in frame rate. But if you look at Shadow of the Tomb Raider, using ray tracing at medium settings there, and plus the DLSS, turbo is about 10 FPS faster than normal mode. That's about 12% ahead, so that's certainly worth having. And in this game, using turbo mode, the CPU ran cool. It's running around about 75 degrees Celsius, so that was definitely pretty decent. So all in all, I think it's a nice looking laptop. I certainly wouldn't mind it in my own arsenal. So thank you for watching. Remember, stay tuned for the full review. I'll go into a lot more details, and remember, like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.